So, morning, Atharv. So today we're gonna looking at the outpost. So what is basically outpost means? Outpost is a kind of a check post. For an example, there is one gatekeeper standing in front of the door. Okay,
God.
something like you can relate. Okay, standing in front of the door, and where the gatekeeper is like looking around, no one can touch him, something like that, in very under surveillance. So in chess we can relate an outpost by looking at a piece where the piece is covering with
Wow.
a pawn
Alex?
or two pawns, one or two pawns, and at the same time no other opponent's black pawn could attack on it. Yeah, pieces can attack on you, but no pawns cannot attack on you. So here, look at this example, and we need to identify which white piece is on outpost where no pawns can take that piece out from that square. So one additional thing, especially the outpost goes for the knight, right? Because knight is a short range piece, so that is why we want to give it a better placement, forward square, where it can control as many as square possible inside opponent's territory. So which is that knight is we can call an outpost. So we have two different knights, Atharv. One is c3, one is e5. So what do you think? Which knight could be an outpost? So an outpost for the knight, there must be a pawn guarding that knight. And where no black's pawn or the enemy pawns would attack on you. So which will be the knight over here? And of course the outpost is a square will be an advanced square inside opponent's territory. Almost. So which knight it will be? Which knight, Atharv? C3?
Are there two? Are there two ways or is there one? Because they both are going in opposite.
Okay, anyway, tell us. Tell me. Which knight is an outpost? Atharv. The c3 knight or the e5 knight?
The E5 right?
Fantastic. E5 knight is an outpost where if you look at carefully, these two pawns is already on f5 and d5, so it has this pawns has no possibilities to take the knight this knight out, right? This pawn already over in the fifth rank, so the knight is sitting happily on the e5 square, and also one pawn from d4 guarding the knight. So this is a huge spot for this knight, a very beautiful knight. So, white is a great knight on e5 for the outpost, right? But it doesn't black have an equally good outpost. For example, the e4 knight looks like equal strong as the knight on e5, where same the two pawns are guarding the knight. But white can prove this knight is actually not an outpost, not a good square for this knight, because we can take control of this square, make sure knight would never jump here or will stay in this position. How do we kick that
We
knight from the
can
e4
kill
square
it.
and prove them, no, you're not, your knight is not that good as mine on e5.
We can attack it with the help of bishop.
Perfect, but that will be an exchange. So in this position, we are not going to take the knight. Instead, we are going to kick that knight
Ah, yeah,
out.
that's a problem. That's a problem.
We are going to kick that knight out. And we'll tell them your knight is not ideal on this square.
Attack it. Attack it.
How we
Means
can
like.
attack this? How we can attack this? In chess, we can attack with it several ways. So pawn
Oh
is a
yeah,
very good
move one.
attacker if we want to kick
Move
them
the
out.
pawn on. Move the pawn on f2.
Hmm?
One step forward.
Excellent. You know what? By pushing the
If
pawn to f3,
square
you are asking,
so.
leave the spot. Leave the spot or I will take you. So now you take control the very important e4 square and make sure no enemies knight will be sitting on the e4 square. So you are happy with your knight on e5 and you successfully kick that knight out. So if we have an outpost, if you have an outpost, make sure you should not give that same to your opponent. Okay. Next, so this is a well-known position from um, Sicilian defense, where we can see the pawn on d6 in the Sicilian defense is a backward pawn, right? It's a backward pawn, and due to the backward pawn, there is there's a strategy and theory behind the backward pawn. So we can use the backward pawn as a shelter of my outpost. So if I tell you and ask you one question, that is, Atharv, which one of the central square is ideal for your knight outpost? Can you find that the square? Which central square, like you have two central squares, one is d5 and one is d4. So where you can put your knight for your outpost? Because looks like very, I mean, this looks like very attractive square, one of the square, because there is no pawns attacking on the squares. So which square, Atharv?
I think it is the square on FD. I mean 5D or T5. But the thing you might have. What do you want? 5D. It is a trade or something? I mean D5.
Atharv, I told you, like whenever we use the squares or um, tell the square's name, we should always use the file name and then goes the rank name. So what will be the name of this square then? D5, right? Well,
Yeah.
so we really love to put our knight on D5, Athel. We really love to put our knight on D5. We really love. But there is one problem. Can you identify the problem? There is an issue.
Yeah, it's a trade. Is it a trade?
If you right, so what will black do next move if you put your knight on D5, which looks like a great outpost for you?
The knight will.
Yeah, go on. If we put our knight on D5, so how what black will do? So black will not. I think black should not accept your knight on D5 and not gonna tolerate. So what they'll do then if you put your knight on D5?
Um,
So
they will kill the knight.
exactly. So of course there is a defender. That is, the defender is the knight on f6, which can take you up, right? So
But there's
we,
one pawn just protecting.
but we love our knight to on d5, which is a great outpost. It is not about we are exchanging the pieces. It's all about we are trying to be active and place it on a very good square. That's it. We are not exchanging the pieces for no reason. We should exchange the pieces for some reason. Without any reason, we should not exchange. So yes, hence the d5 square you can use it, right? But the knight is defending that square. The knight is defending the square. So the next thing would be, then you have to think, how could you take out the defender and you can put your knight on that beautiful d5 outpost square. Find out. This is a very good strategy. Like, it's not only in tactics, like in any kind of strategical approaches, there will be, of course, one or multiple defenders. Your objective will be to take out those defenders or deflect those defenders in order to occupy that square or the certain portion of the game. Here you won the d5 square and you would be allowed to put your knight on d5. You really would be allowed to put your knight on d5. So what you will do? You need to remove the defender or do something about the defender. As the defender we already spotted out is the knight on f6. So what we will do?
We
Easy.
better
You need to find out how could you take out the defender. How could you take
who's
out the defender?
defended
Huh?
that defender.
The knight. How could you take out the defender?
We could kind of prove it that we are going to attack or something.
We are going to prove that the d5 square is our. D5 square is mine. And I can use that square for my knight for the outpost. But the knight is bothering us. The black knight on f6 standing here is bothering us. We don't like this knight. Take it out first. How could we take it out? And then use the square on d5.
You mean kill it?
Yeah, of course. How could you do that? Easy.
The bishop can go side.
I mean, bishop will take the knight, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, hence the knight, bishop takes, and bishop takes. And look at this monster knight. Now, I'm calling it as a monster. It might turns out to be a funny word, right? But there is some specific reason why I'm calling it as a monster. The first reason, the square that knight is occupying currently is the light square. Okay? Am I right? This is a light square, of course, right, Athar? So if it is a light square and the knight is sitting on the light square, who can take me out? Who can kick my knight back? Who can kill me? Kill me in the sense that, I mean, the exchange should be an equal, not like that queen will capture the knight. No, that will be bad for them. But the thing is that who can successfully exchange my knight? Who can do that? Nobody.
Nobody.
Nobody. Why nobody? Because if we talk about the knight versus the bishop here, okay, the bishop is sitting on the dark square. So the bishop has doesn't any way to take or capture my knight since the bishop is on dark square. So no match. Okay. Secondly, the rook will never try to catch me because they will lose too much points, like 2 points, and queen will never. So who can kick me out? So looks like the knight will be sitting here forever. Nobody can touch your knight. Nobody. This is a monster knight you can. And also the same time, if we just compare between the knight and the bishop activity, yeah, bishop has some slight active role on the g5 if we go and it can control the c1. But the knight is really powerful than the bishop because it will be there for remain all the time. That's it. So this is called an outpost. So all you need to do with your knight in a chess game, you have to find out this kind of square where no black pawns or your enemy pawns would attack you, and you'll get this square very easily. And this is how you can active your knight. You understood, Athar? Let's go to the next
Yeah.
one. Perfect. Okay. Now here things might getting a little bit complicated, but I try to make it easy for you. This is a middle game position. Okay. And we have, how many knights do you have, Athar? Quickly, how many knights for black?
Two.
Two knights. Can you tell me the name of the squares with the knight?
C6 and E7.
You know? Awesome. Right. C6 and E7. Very good, Athar. Now, since we have two knights and we know to use the knight, how can you use the knight? To give it a very good square or an outpost. That will be excellent for our knight, right? Knight wants this kind of outpost. All you need to do, give it them. What they want, you should give it them. Now, since we have two knights, we need to find two different square for these two knights, right? We need to identify two different square where I can use the knight on that specific square. So let's go one by one. One would be easy and the other would be a little bit complicated, but once you understand the sequence and the strategy, you will find them very easily. The first one, the knight on c6 method. Just pay attention to this knight only. Okay. The knight is on your territory, on sitting on the 6th rank, and you want to move the knight forward to their territory. Now pay attention to the on the queen side. Okay, I'm just making a box here. I'm just going to make a box here. Um, okay, I made a box. I made a box for you. Now inside this box, I mean this is the queen side area, right? Here we can put our knight on a beautiful square, which is an outpost too. So you have to identify that square, which square is going to be the base square for this knight, and that is an outpost on the other hand. Which square? Identify the square that we want to put our knight over there. Identify.
In that box?
Inside the box there is one square. You have to identify that square. So how many squares we have? I think it will be more possible because we cannot put our pawn, put our pieces over the pawn. So I think this is. So there are 6 squares. How many squares inside this box? 6 squares, right? 3 black,
Yeah.
3 white. One of the square is going to be our outpost square, and that will be our destiny for the c6 knight itself. This knight. The outpost. Okay, once again, what is outpost? Outpost is a square where you put your knight with the support of a pawn or 2 pawns, and no other enemy's pawn can attack you. So we have that square here. Which square?
It is the square on A5.
A5 looks very natural and A5 looks very good. But can you make it a more forward square? Can you move it more forward?
Yeah. It can go up to.
Make sure there will be a pawn to support you. Inside the box only.
Supporting pawn. It might be 2 moves.
Yeah, 2 moves, 3 moves doesn't matter. Just identify that square. That's only one. Identify that square.
It is the square on B4. I mean, is that B4 or
Yeah, before there is 2 white pawns standing out. Which
Okay, first we'll do something.
before not
Uh,
certainly the answer. something else.
Pawn. The pawn which is on a7 can go to a5 for
Hmm?
protection. The pawn on
Yeah,
a7 can go
even the if you move your pawn to a5 and it protect your something any piece on b4, but that loses the piece for just pawn. That is not acceptable, and you really don't want to give your pieces just for pawns. Makes sense. So I think the idea you're showing it's not working that way, unfortunately.
unfortunate.
Okay, let me just make it easy for you. Try to I'm giving it is a light square. It is a light square. So your move was is actually dark square, but it will be a light square.
Oh,
And you need two moves to go there. Two moves to go there. Easy, Arthur.
the box is just so congested. I don't know what.
Okay. The square is actually is
Wait a minute.
hmm?
Wait a minute. I think it's the box. Okay, what's the actual scare? I thought it was. That was it.
Okay. The square is.
Hey, oh, I think it's the square. Like I knew it.
Then why not? Why not you
You
told
tell
me?
it. You tell it.
No, you told me a b4 and a5, not c4. This is c4. Now
I was
look
going
at
to
the
say
c4
that.
square. Yeah, look at the c4 square. If we just talk about the c4 square, in the c4 square, we can see um, the pawn is on d5 is protecting that square. I mean, looking at the square. So if you manage your knight go further, for example, the maneuver like knight a5 and knight c4, you will get a huge improvement with that knight. Huge improvement. And the knight will happily sit over there. And that is the perfect place for this knight, especially. And the idea and the maneuver and the plan strategy is very common in such different openings. For example, in French defense mainly, we can see this maneuver. So this will be your trajectory with this knight. This will be your future plan with this knight. You got it? Well, so that means you need two moves to go there. So you can choose between. On the other hand, let's do talk about the knight which is on e7. The e7 knight is also not good because it is still in your territory, the half of the board. How we can give a place? So for this knight, we want to go the king side area. The king side area is located over this side. This is the king side area. Now, make things easy for you. We want to go on f5 square. This will be a very nice square for my knight. If I manage to go there, my two pawns, which is on g6 and e6, is protecting my knight. Now, you have to think, how could you go there? Currently, you cannot go there for the time being. Do you know? Why not? You can go there. If you go there, what will happen now? If you immediately jump over here, what will happen? Easy.
Uh, the rook might kill you.
Not rook. Rook will not kill the knight because if white
I
try,
have double protection. You have double
yeah,
protection.
because then the rook is also comes with a higher value. So why would white do that? Instead, they would
If they were
capture
dumb
the
only,
pawn.
they would.
They would capture the pawn, Atharv, right? So the pawn is blocking our way. The pawn is bothering us. We have to deflect the pawn.
Hey, you can the move which is on run the. Pawn which is on 6, I mean 8, 6, whatever it is.
Excellent, excellent, wonderful. Pawn h6, h5. It's a big strategical move. Very good. Can I get a high five? Yes,
Is
nice.
that 86 or
You
ABCD?
find out the very interesting and critical and best move in this position, no matter what. h6 to h5. Getting rid out of that pawn, and you won that f5 square. Wonderful decision. This is called chess strategy, right? And if you successfully do that, you'll get the f5 square for your knight. That's all you want. So, h5 on the board.
The greedy white will get the pawn.
So, white try to block things up, okay? Because if white captures the pawn, then black would capture with the rook, and the rook will be on open file. This will be a danger sign for white. So white will not gonna do that. White will try to keep things close. Keep things close. Now, as we want, we got this square, and the knight is really happy. Now the next strategy will be you just use the other knight as we have discussed, knight f5 and knight c. That's what. Understood? Easy, right? In the night, I mean this outpost strategy, you have to follow some few rules. The first rule is you have to see where your knight is. Okay? Then you have to identify the square that you can use it for outpost. And then you want to observe that is there any defender protecting that outpost square? Different like either you capture them or deflect them in order to grab that square. That's all you want. So, Atharv, have you did you understood?
Yeah. Can we play grasshopper